What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another weekly update. And if you haven't done so already, consider subscribing if you are looking for stock market analysis. I typically trade equities, options, short term, long term, intraday. I do it all. So if that sounds like you're something you're interested in, remember to subscribe and also give a like to the video so we can get this video out to other people. But being said, where do we leave off on Friday? Interesting thing. There was a lot of stuff going on with the debt ceiling last week. And so that kind of essentially got alleviated at least until December 3rd. So that stuff got pushed off till December 3rd. But being said, it's only delaying. It's more so because that is when closely related to when the next FOMC meeting is, which is until the end of November. There isn't one in October. So we essentially got the clear for that. Now, being said, I did state that the market was closed on Monday. The market is not closed on Monday. The bond market will close early at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is the only difference. So the stock market is open. It's just the bond market will be closing early. So we do have a full week there, which is also good because next week really starts our earnings. We start getting bank earnings next week. So we also got Delta. We got some of the airlines as well reporting next week. But you got Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citibank, Domino's, Goldman Sachs. There's a lot of big ones. One big one I think to keep in mind here is something that I noticed on the last earnings was Domino's essentially crushed earnings. Being said, Chipotle turned around and crushed earnings the following week, or more so. So those are two kind of edge cases that you might want to keep your eye on. This essentially this week. This week we got Domino's. The following week we have Chipotle, but I definitely keep an eye on Domino's and see where that goes for next week. As far as anything else throughout this week, there's still going to be talks about debt ceiling. That stuff is still coming up. That's being bounced back and forth. Again, we are still worried about rates as well. So that's something you need to keep an eye on and pay attention to because rates, every time the rates are pushing up, just like a couple of months back, tech would sell off pretty hard. And it would seem for no apparent reason, it would just sell because of the rates were being pushed up by the bonds. So being said, the yield. So we need to keep an eye on that. If that happens this weekend, it's something we've had down Fridays and down Mondays the past couple of weeks. So that is what's essentially been taking us down on Mondays is the rates. And then following that, the market kind of picks up and follows suit after that. So as far as the news front as well for that, I think we're pretty good. Again, we are coming into earnings. We start next week. We want to keep an eye on that. Start looking for positions for tech towards the end of the month. Big tech starts reporting. You got your Apples, your Facebooks at the end of the month, and then whatever doesn't report that week, essentially, will be the following week after that. We do have Snap coming up as well. That's on the 21st, so we got 2 weeks for that one. We also have Netflix on the same week on the 19th, so those are two bigger ones to keep an eye on coming into earnings. Once we start getting some of those bigger earnings out of the way, kind of look for continuation plays on other things is what's going to matter. But ultimately, I want to keep an eye on that last week. We got Google, we got Twitter, we got Apple, Starbucks, Caterpillar. Tesla hasn't announced yet. Shopify actually reports on the 28th, I believe. They just announced yesterday, I believe. Yeah, the 28th. So those are things to keep in mind in the upcoming weeks. This is that kind of time you want to kind of start holding positions. And I think this week I didn't take anything into the weekend because I wanted to see. Actually, I did take a BA call to cover earnings, but that's essentially all I had. And that was strictly daily. I think if there's any kind of inflation concerns or anything like that on Monday, as far as the rates and the yields, I think ultimately that will tech could sell and value and banks would climb. And so that's what I'm kind of betting on because some of the banks actually look good. And again, BA, some of the value stocks look good going into next week. Tech is kind of teetering at that spot. It's hitting resistance. But nonetheless, let's get SPY over with, our SPX here. It is it's trying to break this wedge. And one thing I talked about yesterday, I am recording this on a Friday night, so I don't know if there's anything that happened on the weekend. There might be news on Evergrande as well. Could cause something that's still always on the back burner, something to keep in mind. I really don't think it's going to affect the market that much unless it gets, you'll see it pretty quick if something starts to happen. I think the initial scare, contagion, essentially not knowing what was going to happen. But now I think everybody's kind of like, it is whatever, after a lot of other different bankers and everything came out and said it was okay. We'll see what happens. But SPX, I didn't want it to break this 20 and 50. It's really floating around here. So I'm really kind of neutral on the market right now in general. I'm still very bullish in the market. Yes, the market's gone up a lot, but this debt ceiling thing is being pushed off. I do see some kind of major correction, but it's not. I don't think it's going to happen towards the end of the year. I think it's going to spill into early next year. I'm thinking like February, March is normally when we kind of correct anyway. Get that fourth quarter earnings in, and then we start dipping. If something, it's kind of a pattern that's been played out majority of the time. It doesn't say it's going to happen. I mean, we could dip at any time, or correct major at any time. I just think we're going to get that delayed into that. So we're going into next week. Again, always FANG. I'm gonna go over. Let me go over a couple of the ones that I've been looking at. BA, such as I just talked about that one. This is one I got in because of the daily. Now we look like we have a wedge break here in a retest. I want to start getting this because you got earnings for BA on the 27th. So this is one I grab, essentially call to cover that. And then we'll also go Katos. This is a security company. I do like the wedge that it's forming here. So something I want to watch. If the market does sell a little bit and it dips and it holds here around that 2150 mark, I want to look at getting position in this. DraftKings, also another one that's holding. It looks like a retest. I want to see if this holds on Monday. If this is holding that 47.76 mark, I do want to look at taking a position there. Clove actually had a little rip here today. Look for the retest and start pushing up. So we don't want it to break the 20 here on the daily. So the 780, as long as it holds that 780 mark, we can at least try to see the 827 mark on Clove. Chipotle, like I said, is one to keep an eye on. If it does dip lower, I'm hoping this kind of comes down a little bit lower to hit this white mark for me. If it does, then I'll be looking to get contracts to cover earnings. But I want to see, especially with Domino's, if Domino's does well. Chipotle killed it last time, so I want to see what they do moving forward. Just jump back to tech here. Tesla, again, it's in a holding pattern. I honestly do not see this breaking out. I'm going to go out and say that it's going to hold this pattern until earnings. And if it does hit earnings, then we'll, I think, see a break of that 805 mark and possibly start running. Google looks great on the daily. It looks like it's ready to actually push. It's actually broke back above everything. This actually looks really good for all-time highs. Another position I want to look at on Monday and start looking to cover earnings. Again, I'm trying to avoid any kind of crazy dip or volatility over the weekend and have a clear week where I can get access to the stock market if something does happen. Apple's been lagging a little bit. I definitely wanted over this essentially 145 mark. Get over that 145.50 mark, then we'd be good to start heading back for earnings. As soon as we do get over that, I do want to take a position that does cover earnings. Facebook has really been a lagger because of all the news that stuff has come out. Again, I want to take another position in this, cover earnings. I've been in and out of this one a couple different times, but it's been pumped and then pulled back. So just kind of waiting on this one. Square is another one I really like. It got rejected pretty hard today, though. So I'm looking for it to come back down to the 200, essentially that 231. I know there was news on Bitcoin as far as restrictions. Biden wants restrictions on Bitcoin. Kind of pulled Bitcoin down briefly, but it's had nowhere near the amount of effect that it normally typically has. Normally it would sell off like crazy, but Bitcoin is held, and I'm not sure if that's influencing Square at all. But Square is kind of, they do have crypto, but the big thing is that they've done a lot of other different things. They have a lot of other tools in their arsenal to essentially get cash, right? So being said, to make profits off their cash app is essentially the number one app for money exchanging and stuff like that in that ecosystem that is very nice. Square. So I do like the cash app that they have. So well, take a look at this one. Roblox has actually kind of been really disappointing. It has just continued to sell. I don't know what news has come out. I don't know if it's the China stuff that is caught in the Evergrande stuff that is causing these sell-offs. It seems like if there's any kind of gaming news in China, it's just been selling off like there's no tomorrow. Snap actually looks really good on the daily as long as it holds this essentially that 75 mark. If we can hold that above that 75 mark, I can see us retesting all-time highs. Now, a lot of stuff is looking good going into next week, but I just want to be sure because there's been a lot of volatility around this time. Again, we got a lot of option expirations next week, which is something that needs to be brought up because there's bigger amounts of money. There's a couple of $1 trillion worth of option expirations that are coming up, and so we might see some selling just because of that. There might not be any specific news, and we just start selling. And so if that's the case, that could be very much what it is. So I wanted you to keep that in mind while building out these positions. Make sure you got enough time to cover and not buying weeklies unless you plan on essentially trading intraday. UPST holding really well as long as it holds to 20 here. Essentially at that 295 mark, we're still looking pretty golden. Broke back out to this little wedge. I want to see where this goes. Was in and out of positions in this a couple different times. I've scalped it a couple different times already. A firm monster mover. It's been retesting all-time highs here. Also something to keep an eye on if we do start selling for whatever reason. Amazon struggled today. It tried to break. Friday was just a bad day for tech in general. A lot of the pushes were fake breakouts and nothing happened and it came back. But as long as it holds the 200, essentially that 32.83 mark, looking to try to get into this. I would really like this might actually start pushing its way over to the trend line before it actually breaks. So we might see another week of this sideways action trying to break and not actually doing so before we see a break. Maybe towards the end of the week, there might actually be a break of Amazon. Once it actually breaks out here would be a better time to get in. Shop, I put the second leg up here. And then it essentially hit that 1427 and just got rejected really hard off of that. I want to keep this. They destroyed earnings. They do very well. They have tons of partnerships. Another one of the stocks that I really like because it just continues. It has one of those cult followings and continues to push forward. It also has a crazy amount of price targets. That's why I like trading a lot of the FANG because their price targets are ridiculous. Most of the time, they're upgrades. Are a couple $100. The shops, the Googles, Amazons, the Teslas, right? These price targets are really high, and so those are things that I do look out and try to take into account when I'm trading, and helps me with position size and my confidence in the trade as well. SC is another big one. It's trying to get a wedge break. I want to see if this actually breaks. It did get rejected pretty hard off the trend line, so I want to see if it breaks back over this next week. Net has had a monster week with a firm. Looking for a retest on this, essentially at the 138 mark. See if we can hold that 138 mark. And then go into price discovery at that point. Etsy, nice break and retest. A lot of stuff is looking like this. I just want to make sure Monday this is holding again. 212. I don't want to break below that. Etsy can possibly go at least up to that 226 mark. And then I'm not quite sure when Etsy earnings are. I know it's sometime after Amazon, I believe. So probably be sometime in November, I believe. TTD is another one. I've been struggling to hold here. It's holding the 200. May actually be worth getting a position here, especially if you start seeing your Googles, Netflix and stuff, or your ad revenues. Facebook start doing well. TTDD will do well as well. So this is one I want to keep an eye on. GS, this is one, the wedge breakout. It depends on what chart you're looking at. TOS chart, it looks like it's still kind of getting rejected here. I've seen some other charts where this is actually broken above. It looks like it's a break. So this is one I want to keep an eye on, especially because we're coming into the week of earnings. I want to see if this is actually going to break up and start running. So if you want to keep on watch, again, I don't like banks that much, but I might actually play Goldman Sachs a little bit next week. Just depends. Airbnb, again, wedge break, retest. If it holds that 170 mark, possibly good for entry. At least get the 177 mark. Potential, I would like it to really come down to build a position, but that may have already passed. I did capture it further back here. Actually, I think I caught it at the 140 mark and ended up selling on the first pump, not this massive second pump that happened out of the day after. Space, still struggling, but I want to keep this one on watch. And that is pretty much it. That's pretty much what I got for you guys. The video is already pretty long. There's a lot going on, so just be mindful. Again, option expiration, there's a lot of money expiring this week, a lot of money being shifted around. We might have seen some of that this week, but be mindful. We might see that again during this week. And then there's all the debt ceiling stuff, Evergrande. The stuff could and could not influence the market. It really just depends on how market takes it. Again, the market is very finicky when it comes to weight rate or any kind of news right now. So being said, remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you've made it this far. And until next time, guys, I'll see you later.